I am here, and
Chatanabe.
yeah, I'm not as crazy as him though. He's like, I'm never gonna be on like the vote fucking Jill Stein fucking party because that's just makes no sense to me. All right. Let me know when we're on. I think we're good.
We are good.
All right, let's get going, guys. Welcome. Tonight we're gonna break down episode 6 of The Penguin. We're the Winter Hill Warriors. I'm Chenny Britt. I'm joined by my boy Damon. And let's get going on this episode. What was this episode called? Gold Summit.
Yes.
All right. So this episode was just to quickly rehash. I think we ended off last episode with Sofia and Sal Maroney teaming up now, and now the Falcone family is now the Gigantes, and then Oz is setting up shop in the underground trolley tunnels that have been abandoned, and he's setting shop to run his Bliss operation, and that's pretty much it, right? And then Vic, Oz, and Frances, Oz's mom, they're holed up in Crown Point right now, hiding out because Sofia is after them. Anything you want to add, Damon, before we start going into the scene-by-scene breakdown?
If you don't look too closely, it just seems like a decent filler episode, but there's a ton that went down in terms of defining the landscape for how the last couple episodes are going to wrap up this season.
Yeah, that's a good description of it. It definitely was a setup episode to kind of further the plot, but let's get going. So we intro and we kind of just get this speech from Oz. There's like some sort of time shift, right? Like I'm guessing a week or two has gone by because the the Bliss operation is now up and running. They've managed to like multiply whatever the 2 buckets of mushrooms that they had left. They've managed to actually like grow back their supply, and Oz is running a nice shop. And we see Vic. Vic is riding the motorbike. For a second, I thought, fucking, this was gonna be the Batman. For a second,
That would have been tough.
Would have been tough. And so they got the operation humming. They're making a ton of money, and Oz has no problem paying people. Like that's the funny thing is he's not the most loyal guy, but he has no problem paying people what he thinks they're worth. And we get some names that are floated out. We get a name called the Sullivans. I think they're one of the street gangs that Oz is now supplying Bliss to. But basically what's happening is they're hiding out, trying to stay away from Sofia and Sal, and they're just supplying a lot of the gangs with Bliss and having the gangs move Bliss. And they're just basically going to try to be like the ultimate plug, right? That's essentially what they're doing. And they're making a ton of fucking money. They're slowly getting more and more gangs on board. And Oz also has plans to continue to clean up the tunnels, right? Because the tunnels are going to allow them to travel all throughout the city, and not many people know about them. So the tunnels are kind of their secret code right now, like their little secret I don't know, like their secret weapon, right? So they're slowly like expanding within the tunnel, slowly making sure they can access other regions of the city. Oz is pumped, and they haven't solidified a deal with the Triads just yet, but Oz says that Link is starting to hit him up because there's just so much money being made in these streets that even the Triads can't resist. And we kind of see all of this operations being run, and this dude, I think his name is Zeke, right? So Zeke is this dude who's been working on trying to get the power to be a little bit stronger. The problem is there's not a lot of electricity right now running through Gotham, and the politicians are running electricity to the rich neighborhoods, obviously, and neglecting the poor neighborhoods. So the power oftentimes goes out, which is disastrous. I remember when I used to run that little grow up with Searles. Anytime we had like a power outage or something because we were using up so much power, like it could, if that shit was extended for even an hour, then it could fuck over the plants. But so overall things look okay, and Oz is pumped. Oz is like, look, we're paying everyone in Crown Point right now. We're paying a lot of workers, a lot of people respect us and look at me. You know, my name is ringing out through the streets. Your name is ringing out through the streets. We're known as guys who are making the neighborhood richer. So Oz wants to be his own modern day Rex Calabrese, right? And that's basically the setup. So Team Oz, Team Vic, Right now, they got the shop up and running. They're starting to make a fuck ton of cash, but they do have some pretty brutal enemies. Thoughts on that?
I loved his little monologue that tied back into his whole spiel. And Vic taking that shot on the motorcycle when it rolls in. We talked about this last time out. These tunnels are the perfect spot for shots like this. Kind of like Bruce's opening scene on the motorcycle back at the Batman. The whole scene and the whole spiel from Oz are basically him coloring his vision for who they are, trying to define the narrative. Like this dude is in love with the narrative. When he's talking about that's food on your table, clothes on your backs, like that's some motivating stuff to hear out loud for the troops. The we're all in construction line made me laugh. Like this is a perfect gangster setup. He might as well just said they were in waste management.
They're just longshoremen, Damon.
Absolutely, yes, of course, of course. And of course, I mean, Oz is going to be selling to everybody at once. He's not a loyal dude when faced with the prospect of success. We saw that back when he snitched on Sofia in episode 4. We saw it with the Maroney double cross. He's going to have his hand in multiple buckets. Uh, he loves to define them as the underdogs, too. Like, they'll never think to look down. We've got their loyalty because we pay them. Been just kind of talking about how he wants to be that dude he idolized, like you said. He wants to be this Robin Hood type dude who gets to have his cake and eat it too, like defend the poor but make money off the rich and the poor all at once.
Yep. Another thing I didn't mention is when Vic was doing the last drop off, so he was dropping off a shit ton of Bliss to the Sullivans. He says that he was followed by some of Sofia's people, but he was able to get away. So Sofia and the rest of the Maroney gang as well still don't know specifically where the operation's being run. So they've been trying their best to figure it out. So this is this game of cat and mouse where obviously this situation is not going to be tenable for too long. But yeah, so they are actively trying to search for them, and Vic almost got caught, but he was able to get away. And Oz doesn't really seem bothered by that. He seems very calm, despite the fact that they're very close to just being getting blown up. But then we cut to Sofia, and she has just finished having some sort of like dominatrix type of sex with Julian Rush, something like that, right? He's fucking tied to a chair. I gotta say, Rush is pretty fucking ripped, but either way.
Is it a candle wax on his shoulders? Is that what that is?
Oh, let me try to zoom in if I can see it. Thank God they're not showing any like nudity, or else we get. Yeah, that looks like hot candle wax. Yeah, if you're in the chat and you've engaged in that type of stuff or whatever, let us know. But
Yeah,
anyways,
tell us about it.
tell us about it. Tell us about the experience. Is it as painful as it seems? Yeah. So that's going on, and Sofia is treating him, with some disdain, which is typically how these dynamics go, like the dominatrix dynamics go, and not that I would know. And then we see that Sal Maroney's actually staying at her spot as well. So Maroney's just fucking cooking some dinner by himself, and Sofia pulls up, and basically they're holding Sal here as to keep him from getting discovered. He's still a fugitive because he escaped from what is it, Blackgate? Is it Blackgate? I think that's what the prison's called. But Sal's kind of having like some PTSD because he's just lost his wife and his son, and he's actually cooking a recipe that his wife Nadia had showed him, and he mentions like, hey, I kind of wanted to, or I wanted to pass this recipe down, right? Like Nadia told me this recipe so I could pass it down, and then he chokes up when he's talking about it because he now realizes like his son is dead, so who's he gonna pass the recipe down to? But either way, him and Sofia have a little dinner where they kind of chat and just figure out what their plan is. And Sal just goes, "Look, man, like we have to fucking get Oz." And Sofia tells Sal, "Look, we almost caught him. One of our men, Leo, saw Vic delivering product to the Sullivans, but he lost him, right?" And Sal's whole thing is, look, we're running out of time because they're making so much money right now. And if Oz gets all of the gangs under him, it's over. If they're all making money and united, then it's going to be really difficult to stop all of them. We have to act fast. And Sofia says, well, you know what? The triads aren't going to work with them. He needs the triads. The triads are still the most powerful out of all of these individual street gangs, and the triads are going to work for me. Sal thinks Sofia's being naive because he's just like, look, money talks, and it's not going to be long before the triads are also working with Oz. So Sophia says, look, we're going to send a message, right? So we kind of know what that means. She's basically saying we're going to fucking kill some people that are working with Oz to just send a message that if you work with Oz, you're going to be in trouble. So I'm going to pause there if you have thoughts.
Well, I like that the core of Maroney's observation came back to advice that Carmine would have given Oz back in the day. That was a unique connection that I didn't see coming. And to be honest with you, I would not have guessed that the season of Penguin was going to focus on family so much with like hard hitting emotional stuff on what that means and how they function. Like when I thought of the live action Penguin, my first thought is like Danny DeVito running around with a gun in the 90s. Like I was not seeing this kind of depth here, but I'm glad we got it. Like we see some scenes later on, and this is the first one that really just tips off like the layers that these characters can go to on a dime. The fact that Maroney's mourning the loss of his own family and Sophia has just killed her whole family
I like
and
that.
filling that void to him somewhat. Like she's like talking to him and he sort of like identifies with his son being gone. And like you can tell he likes having her around, which is like an episode ago, these two were mortal enemies. So is it a little quick moving? Yes. But I also do like the way that there's just so much depth in some of these scenes. And the fact that they both know Oz so well, like they both have the highest read on Oz than anybody else. What did Sophia say? He likes the spotlight too much to stay hidden,
Yep.
which that's Oz to a T, especially what we know about.
Yep.
So I really like seeing these two playing off each other in this scene.
Yeah, that's a good point on their relationship because you almost it's funny, right? Because when Carmine was alive, him and Sal went at it all the time, and Carmine never really valued any of his family. He was a straight fucking snake, right? And it almost seems like if Sal ever had a daughter like Sophia, he values his family, right? The Maronis value their family. Like he probably would have treated his daughter really, really well. And
Oh,
he's
for sure.
right. He's not 1/10 the monster that Carmine is or
No,
was.
dude, he loved Taj, and Taj was an idiot.
Yeah, Taj was a fucking moron. All right, so that's Sophia's plan is to send a message. We then jump over to Crown Point, and Oz is there. It's freezing. It's close to wintertime at this point. It's probably like sometime around December, and the electricity is spotty at best because it's all getting diverted to the rich areas. So they lose power, and Oz is trying to get this little generator going, but the generator's not really working too well. It's fucking freezing in the house, and it's already cold enough for Oz and Vic, but Oz's mom, Frances, is really suffering from all of this shit, and Frances is freaking out. Sorry, she's freaking out because she wants music going and stuff like that, and now they can't play music, and they can barely get enough electricity to actually heat up the stove and cook their food and shit like that. So they kind of just have this little depressing ass breakfast, and she's expressing disapproval towards the situation, and Oz is like, look, we're making a lot of money right now, we're going to be out of this situation soon. And then she's also having another episode, right, where she's kind of she's still thinking that like her other boys, Oz's brothers, are still around and stuff like that. So it's just tough. It's a tough situation overall. And then Oz actually tells Vic, hey, if we can get some more workers with small hands to pack up the Bliss packages, that would be a lot better. So that's going to be an interesting angle to see if they start getting some child labor in there. But
It feels too perfect for Oz, which is terrible.
yeah. So that's going down. So Frances is still kind of having her issues, and Vic is trying to calm her down, but Oz is getting pissed off at Vic for trying. It's just very messy. But then he gets a call from Link, and Link delivers some bad news. He tells Oz that like the triads are out, right? And the reason why is because Sophia has sent a message by killing 3 corner boys that were part of the Sullivan's crew and hanging them upside down and cutting off their pinky finger, right? Which is what Oz did to Alberto's pinky finger. So this is a clear message to Oz. It's a clear message to everyone in the streets. If you work with Oz, you're dead. And Link tells Oz, look, we're fucking out. We're not going against Sophia. So Oz is fucking pissed about this, and he's got to figure out like what to do. And then right on the spot, as we've always said, Oz is great at like not necessarily game planning. His game plans are like, I'd say B- level, but the man's improvisation skills are fucking elite. And right away, he has a realization when he says, look, I couldn't give away the Bliss now if I tried. And he's like, wait a second, I'm going to give away all of the Bliss. Got a quick chat from Mel Lee saying it's been a while because Oz has the tunnels up and running. Yep. Oh, and she says penguins thrive in the cold. I like that. That's actually a really good, good little metaphor slash slash theme. But yeah, so it's got to be like December at this point because yeah, he's gotten everything running. But either way, Oz's plan is like, look, we're gonna give away all of this shit for free, flood the streets with so much product that the demand is gonna be so high that no matter what Sofia does in terms of intimidation, it's not gonna stop the demand for the product. And because Oz is right now the only one who can create the supply, right? Because Sophia's factory, we have to assume when they got ambushed by Nadia, like she probably took the entire factory. So that's all cooked. So Oz is the only one right now that can create Bliss. So he comes down to his shop and he tells everyone, look, we're gonna give all this shit away for free. Go to every single bar, diner, restaurant, whatever. Don't even take any money from for the Bliss. Just give them the Bliss. Let them distribute it. It's basically just a one-time bonus, and we're gonna create this demand. So I'm gonna pause here before we get into this interaction between Vic and Squid.
Once again, we've sympathized heavily with Oz, and then he just pulls a maneuver like we're gonna give the entire street free drugs. Like that's such a diabolical move. You know how many like people you're gonna create addictions in off the bat with that?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then you can just picture him walking up to an orphanage full of kids, like, "Come on, kids, you want to be like me and Rex Calabrese? Make your own money. We need
Mm-hmm.
small hands."
Yep.
Like this, it's writing itself, man. I think jumping back to the interaction between Vic and Penguin's mom or Oz's mom, and then Oz in general in there, when she drops back into the flashback about the brother and Vic just goes along with it, it's sort of a habit that Vic has developed where he's gotten very good at lying to people out of good intentions, which started back in episode 2 with when he was leading Gabriella along as if he was going to go back and actually meet up with her.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. That's true. Vic doesn't want to say no to people.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't want to say no. It's tough with it, but he's stuck, he's stuck between two worlds now. I just that grin on Oz's face as well when he gets the idea to do this. Like at least once an episode, he breaks into that signature grin, and it's usually a highlight reel.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And another thing that Mel just said in the chat is like it's ironic because Oz thinks he's fighting for the community, but he's destroying it. That's like classic fucking drug dealer shit, right? Just in every show we see. They focus on the money that they're putting in people's pockets, but not on the neighborhoods that they're destroying. And him giving away the drugs for free is very similar to what Purdue Pharma did back with OxyContin, where they just fucking gave that shit to docs for free, and docs were starting to give it out for free, like in samples and stuff like that, getting people hooked. All right, let's cut to the next scene. So Vic is walking right after getting the marching orders from Oz, or actually, yeah, he's coming back to this to the crib actually, and Squid catches him and is just like, "Hey man, like I've noticed that you're rocking new shoes. You're looking like you got some money. I want some money. Where are you getting all this money from? Put me in touch with the people that you're working for. I want it." Right? That's basically what the entire interaction is. And when Vic says, "Look, I don't really have any money, blah blah blah," Squid sees right through it and just tells him, "Look, I know you're bullshitting. I saw you smuggling that old lady the other day. Maybe I'll find her if you don't put me in touch with your boss." So Squid is already coming very, very direct, and he's threatening Vic if he doesn't put him in touch with Oz. So that's not a good situation. Vic walks away knowing that this is going to have to get dealt with. Do you have any thoughts on that? Which we'll come to later, obviously.
Yeah. If a guy is ever coming up to you, asking you about your shoes and complimenting you, but he's not cool with you, that's usually a really bad sign.
Terrible sign.
Squid, yeah, dude. Squid is the typical, like you said, we're talking about the archetype of a drug dealing setup in a TV show or a movie. He's the typical low grade pusher who wants his hands on bigger game. And there are probably dudes who legit operate like this, but we did touch last time, and you had a theory that was pretty spot on that we'll readdress, where like these two have just never quite been on eye to eye terms. Even if you recall back in episode 2, the first time we see him mentioned, Vic is almost like giving him like a too good for you, or like trying to shun him because he thought he was bad news back on the rooftop. So this has been brewing for a minute now.
Yep. And so the next scene we'll cut to is Sophia and Sal go looking for Oz. They go to his apartment. Obviously, he's not going to be there, and they're just kind of going through all of his shit. And Sal's starting to lose his mind because he wants revenge so badly, and he sees this photo of Oz's mom back in the day, and he's like, "Oh, he's got family," like, basically saying like, "Let's go kill his family." And Sophia's like, "Look, no, his brothers, they died when they were young, and his mom is dead as well." So Sophia believes that Oz's mom is dead, which is not true. And the father is not in the picture. So Sal loses his fucking mind. He's like, I got nothing to take from him. And Sophia does some more snooping around. She goes in his drawer and finds a picture of Eve. And we know that Eve is basically the, like, not the, like, the head leader of, like, all of the prosts, right? In that neighborhood that Oz frequents. So Eve has a bit of pull. We know that Eve and Oz go way back, and Sophia is obviously now going to use Eve to try to get to Oz. Any thoughts on that before I keep going?
I can't believe Oz just had a Polaroid sitting around. That just seems like a sloppy move.
Yeah, very, very silly.
Before they find it, even if they just would have had like a 20-minute segment of Maroney and Sophia just roasting Oz's entire apartment, that would have been hilarious.
Yeah. They turn on, at one point, I think they turn on the electric fireplace or whatever, and they just both look at it. They're like, this shit sucks. Then we cut to Oz. He returns back to Crown Point, and he finds his mom. Actually, she had another like psychotic episode, and she went in the tub and basically like ran herself a bath, except there's no heat, so the water's fucking freezing, and she's been there all night. So as an older woman who's suffering from some sort of like degenerative brain disease, she could damn near die and freeze to death. So Oz gets her out of there, like cleans her up and puts like, obviously puts dry clothes on her and stuff like that. And she has this moment of clarity where she looks Oz right in the eye and is just like, look, I'm not going to live like a fucking vegetable. I'm just not. And if my mind goes before my body goes, just kill me. Like make sure I die, because I need to have my dignity. I'm not gonna be someone who's like shitting myself. Like, she's like, right now I'm clear. I know what's going on. I'm telling you right now, that's like my order to you. Do that for me. I know my mind is slipping right now. You have to help me. You got to help me die. And this obviously crushes Oz, because he's just like, look, I want to keep you alive. You're not thinking straight. But he doesn't understand the pain that she's going through, just not being able to be lucid and stuff like that. But she tells Oz, look, like, swear to me basically that you'll do it if it comes to that point. And Oz says, look, I'll do it. And then, he kind of helps her get dolled up and puts the necklace around her neck so she looks gorgeous for another night, and they kind of share this nice little moment. And then later on that night, Vic returns, and he actually tells Oz, he gives Oz the updates. He's like, look, we've flooded the streets with Bliss. The drug is everywhere. Everybody's eating it up. There is this one small problem. There's this guy in my neighborhood named Squid, and actually I stole your I was trying to steal your rims for Squid, right? So in episode 1, when Vic and a bunch of the other teens were trying to steal Oz's the rims off Oz's Maz, it was actually on orders of Squid, right? So Vic was doing a little job for Squid, and Vic tells Oz, look, Squid is asking questions about us, and he wants to meet you, and I don't think he's going to stop. The entire time, Oz is kind of half listening, but he's just like, look, it's cold in here. It's too cold for my ma. I got to figure out what's going on. The doctors don't even know what she has. They don't know if it's Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or something with Lewy bodies. What the fuck is that, huh? And he's just like, none of these docs, these machines, these diplomas, they don't fucking know. How am I supposed to protect her? So he's just kind of venting. But then he comes to, and he's just like, okay, do you need help with this situation involving Squid? Like, is he going to be a problem? And at that moment, if Vic just said yeah, Oz would have probably just helped him kill Squid, right? Like, that he probably would just handle that shit. But Vic says no, like, I got it. And Oz is like, okay. So that's that. And I'm gonna pause here before we jump to the scene where Sophia starts interviewing the prosts.
Yeah, I think there are a couple issues going on with the communication between Oz and Vic here. Chiefly, Vic, we talked about how he doesn't like telling people no. I think he just doesn't want to be a bother to Oz because he knows that Oz is stressing about his mom, who is the most essential thing to him, as he's told Vic many times. And he wants to prove himself that he can handle his own things a little bit too. And you could tell, like you said, Oz is preoccupied from the jump. He just had that huge combo with his mom, which, like, goddamn, like the humanity within that was impeccable. Like this scene just escalated to a whole different level when she was like, "You got to help me die," or like, "Knowing I don't want to be that lady, knowing just enough to make it worse. If I lose my dignity, what else do I have?" That was gut wrenching. And then she drops like that, "You'll be all right. I know you will. You're my brave boy." Like, damn, my eyes might have watered a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
And then she just like turns it around with a "Don't pussy out on me, Oswald." So like this is an incredibly unique relationship. And I think if you would have just told me this was a dialogue in it from the jump, I would have thought it was kind of like funny. But like I feel for these people right now.
Yeah, yeah. It's fucking all they have is each other, and then potentially Vic.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump to Sophia. She's doing her work. She's down in the little red light district, and none of the other pros want to talk to her. She tries to offer them money to see if they know who Eve is, and they're like, "Nope, never seen her." But Roxy tells her, "Look, I can help you. Just give me some money, and I'll tell you all about Eve." So that works. And meanwhile, at the same time, Oz is doing his own dirty work, and he's staking out this councilman named Councilman Hady. And I think we actually heard of him in episode one, right? Back when Oz was still kind of under the pretense of working for the Falcone family, right? He mentioned something about like, "Hey, send this to Councilman Hady," because he had some blackmail on Councilman Hady. So Oz is staking out Councilman Hady because Councilman Hady has the pull to get electricity up and running in Crown Point. So Oz waits till Hady is going to his car, and he just straight up just ambushes him and puts these fucking pliers on his nose, and is like could rip a part of his nose off. And he first tells Hady like, "Look, I've sent letters to you and stuff like that, basically like the blackmail letters, and you haven't responded." And Hady's like, "Look, I've paid off who I need to pay off. I've paid my debts." And he doesn't even know who Oz is. All he knows is like, "Hey, aren't you the guy who worked for Carmine?" Right? So it's very disrespectful to Oz. Side note: we texted about this as the episode was airing. This is our fucking boy. If you've ever seen Entourage, right? This is Billy Walsh from Entourage, and
Yes, sir.
Entourage aired in the fucking mid 2000s. Billy Walsh has not aged a fucking day from the last season of Entourage. Good for him, man. Holy shit.
Looks terrific.
Looks terrific. So either way, Oz is like, "Look, what if I, basically he's just like, look, I'm not going to stop fucking with you. Like maybe I'll hurt you. Maybe I'll keep introducing you to some of the other gangsters I know. And I'll leak the fact that you've paid off some of your gambling debts with city funds, right? Like you're just a bad councilman. I'm gonna blow your life up if you don't direct some of that electricity to Crown Point." And he's telling them families are living in the dark, they're freezing, and you rich fucks are fucking hogging all the electricity for yourselves. And Hady's like, "There's nothing I could do. Like there's a lot of red tape." And then Oz just basically yanks out a small piece of his nose, like a very, very tiny piece of his nose. And Hady's like, "Okay, I'll do it. And Oz is like, "Look, relax. It's just your nose. Give me your tie," to kind of just like dab the blood, right? Like he just ripped a chunk of his nose off. And then he kind of helps him back out of the spot, right? He's like, "You got plenty of room. Go, go, go." So Hady's off, and Oz is making moves to make sure that his mom stays warm. And then he gets a call from Donnie, who I believe is the head of the Sullivans. And Donnie is basically saying, "Look, I'm not working for you anymore because Sophia and her squad killed 3 of my guys." So it's all a mess right now for Oz. And Oz says, "Look, we're gonna figure all of this out." And he says, "We're gonna call a meeting with everyone. So I'll text you an address. Don't worry about it. Just show up to the spot. I'm gonna get all of the gangs there." And all of the gangs hate each other, don't like working with each other. But Oz is trying to set up this big powwow of a meeting. Also, in the chat, Mel says it's like a stressed parent. This is in, I think, reference to the interaction with Oz and Vic. She says it's a stressed parent and an anxious child. Oz was half listening and preoccupied, so Vic felt like he needed to protect Oz. Yep, That's a good fucking call. It's pretty much what you were saying there, Damon. But yeah, Oz's plan is to call this big powwow of the gangs, and that's going to be high risk, high reward. So we'll see how that goes. Thoughts on that before we touch on this Vic Squid interaction?
Yeah, he is pretty much pulling a Game of Thrones maneuver, right? We've seen this one before. Like, I don't have the guns to go get this, so I've got to combine all the smaller factions to basically do our thing and see if we get it across the goal line. So we'll see how it plays out for him. You got to admire the strategic thinking in a lot of ways. The way that he gets to this point too, like he's really just been like double crossing his way to the top.
Yeah.
And like we had in the chat earlier, there's the idea that like he thinks he's doing something noble, but it's for all the wrong reasons. Like even the interaction with the councilman is a microcosm of that, where he's just, yeah, he says he's just doing it to get the heat back on for his mom, but he also knows he needs more power for to push all of his drugs and stuff, which is what I think, even though he loves like his mom to death, the main thing is the main thing in terms like he is still just a power hungry, like a megalomaniac glutton style dude, just trying to get his way up to whatever he can here. So I think he's like climbing a more dangerous and less stable path as every episode goes on.
Yep. And now we're going to jump to the next scene, which epitomizes Vic essentially, right? Which is what was dropped in the chat by Mel. And also you mentioned it as well, which is he doesn't want to be direct with people and hurt them. He'd rather just kind of take some of the L himself, if that means not hurting someone else. So Vic has his meetup with Squid, and it's just him and Squid. And he tells Squid, look, I talked to my guy, and they don't need anyone right now, but I'll just give you some money basically to go away, and I'll give you some more money next week. So Vic is essentially trying to pay off Squid to get him off his back, and Squid sees it and just gets fucking pissed, and he throws all the money on the ground. And is just like, you think you're fucking big, Victor? Like, you're not big time. You know, you used to work for me. I know about this fucking Wizard of fucking Oz. Like, he doesn't know who Oz is, but he's just like, this Wizard of fucking Oz, nobody sees this guy. He's the one pulling the strings, running this new drug Bliss. Like, what I do know is that there's some heavy hitters looking for him, and maybe I'll help them out and get some real money. So once he says that, man, you're dead. So Vic sees that, and immediately Vic's face fucking just like his expression changes, and he knows like, all right, I got to do what I got to do right now. But he still gives Squid plenty of outs. Right? So he's like, look, just chill. And Squid's like, take me to that motherfucker right now. And Vic kind of just looks at him the entire time, and he's just kind of weighing in his head, like, what should I do? But when he realizes just how intent on seeing Oz Squid is, he makes his decision. So he tells Squid, look, he's not going to be here for a few hours. And Squid's like, look, I could wait. So Vic's like, all right, yeah, walk with me. And as he walks a little bit ahead, he turns around and boom, one shot Squid right in the fucking throat. So satisfying, man. So fucking satisfying to see that fucker just get popped. And but it's a brutal scene for Vic, right? Because Vic caught his first body when he rescued Oz, when he just straight up rammed one of Nadia's goons with the Moz. But this is the first like intentional, like not spur of the moment. Well, I guess it was kind of spur of the moment, but you know what I'm saying, right, David? Like this is like straight murder, whereas the others you could justify as like him saving Oz. So he's like traumatized just looking at Squid just fucking bleed out. But Squid's a bad guy. Like he had to go. What do you think about that? Oh, and before we got another chat. Wardrobe says, I didn't realize that Squid wore a kilt and with that huge coat. Felt bad for Vic, but you knew it was coming. Is Squid wearing a kilt?
At first, the outfit that reminded me of, remember when you were a kid and you would just wear baggy basketball shorts with a winter jacket out sometimes? Because
Yeah,
like
yeah, the Boston special.
we're just like in New England and like just being like little shitheads running around like that.
Yeah, oh my God, I'm looking at this right now.
It kind of looks like one. But you're right. I mean, spot on. This was the first premeditated kill for Vic. And it's just crazy how vulnerable everybody is in his infrastructure. Like when he starts throwing the money back at him, it's like, oh shit, like here it is. And he's talking about snitching on Oz and all that. Like
Oh
he
man.
had to get it done. There was no way that Squid was sticking around here. But I think Vic not being able to handle it was super in character because of course he can't handle it because he really doesn't realize the reality of the stuff he has to do to run this life with Oz until it happens, and that's when it's too late.
Who's the I keep forgetting the name of the actor who plays Vic. I forget the name, but he does such a good job with this expression right here. As soon as Vic says, or as soon as Squid threatens to basically expose Oz to Sophia, Vic's expression, it's just a fucking killer expression. Like
Yes.
so dark.
I think it's Resny Feliz.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna
Resny
botch
Feliz.
that fucking pronunciation, so I'm glad you took that for me. But yeah, so Squid's fucking dead. The crazy thing is like no one's really gonna find him, right? Like you're at Crown Point, it's been decimated. Like he's gonna just be missing. After these natural disasters and shit, it's the best time to commit crimes, right? Like that's basically what happened after Katrina, right? That's like all what True Detective season 1 was about. Just how
Yeah.
easy it was to just abduct people and shit after the hurricanes. So,
Yep.
all right, let's Wardrobe in the chat says, "Glad you guys and the viewers are here. I've got to talk about this incredible show." Yeah, we feel the same. We feel like, and Damon, I'm curious what you think about it. I feel like episode 1 when it dropped, it just like this was not discussed too much. Like we were on the subreddit, there weren't that many members of it. Not a lot of people were talking about it. I feel like things started to heat up around episode 3. That's when like more and more people I knew started talking about this show.
Yeah, I think episode 3, and I think it became undeniable after Sophia's episode. That
Yeah.
was the episode to me. Like Sophia's episode reminds me of how The Last of Us really escalated
Oh
after the
yeah.
the uh, the Bill episode,
Oh
right?
yeah. That episode was so fucking good.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So then we get this awesome shot of Sophia in her black high heel like boots, absolute fire, and she's got a gun and she pulls up to Eve's spot. Eve is not surprised to see her. Turns out that Roxy is actually not disloyal. Eve actually told Roxy, "Hey, if Sophia comes around looking for me, just tell her that you know where I'm at. Like, tell her to pull up, basically." And it's two birds, one stone because one, it saves a lot of time. Two, Roxy can get a little bit of cash out of it. So Eve is really looking out for her girls, and her girls look out for her. So Sophia pulls up and is just basically like, "Do you know where Oz is?" And Eve is like, "I don't." And he would never tell me. "Do you want a drink?" And then these two women kind of have a small little powwow. They come from such different backgrounds, right? Eve came from nothing. She's had to hustle, get into sex work, all of that just to keep herself alive. Sophia came from the super rich, mobbed up family. It's on the surface it seems like she had everything, but not many people know. Like obviously her father was a fucking ruthless murderer. But either way, Sophia's kind of like shitting on Eve most of the time, saying like, "Yeah, Oz probably manipulates you. You probably lie to a bunch of men." Or no, she basically says like Oz probably like manipulates you. Or no, sorry. She calls Eve out on basically manipulating Oz, right? She's basically saying like, "You probably tell Oz that he's destined for greatness, all of these things. I used to say this shit to men before," right? So she looks down on Eve and she tells Eve, "Look, you're good at telling people what they want to hear. I was at his spot. I found a drawer with your shit. And what type of relationship do you guys have? Because like, what does he pay you for sex? Like, is this really love? Like, what is going on?" And Eve is just kind of sipping some of that brown liquor, and she's just like, "You don't know shit about my life. Like, you don't know what it's like to come from where I come from and what me and Oz have. It's not just one thing. Your world is like super easy. It's your world is all black and white. My world isn't like that." And then Eve calls out Sophia on murdering all those women 10 years ago that were working at like, what was it, the Iceberg Lounge, right? So those women were all working for Eve, and Eve is pissed about those women, and she still thinks that Sophia's the one who killed them, right? And Sophia's like, "No, I didn't fucking kill them. Like, I didn't kill them. It was my father. Oz knew about this. He never told you. And Oz knew that my father was the murderer the entire time. He didn't care. He continued to work for him, continued to lie to you, because if he told you the truth, you'd be pissed at him for working for my father," and just all of these things, right? So Oz basically was totally fine with working for a murderer as long as it meant him moving up, and he's been lying to you all of these years as well. And it's kind of undeniable because even if Oz didn't have like firsthand knowledge of it, he fucking knew, right? Like he knew that it obviously wasn't Sofia who committed those murders and shit, but it was just one of those things where he's guilty by association, right? Like he's guilty because he turned a blind eye. And and this kind of crushes Eve because she thought she had the read on Sofia. She thought that Sofia was this crazy murderer hangman. Turns out that's not true. And Eve's just like, well, fuck. And then Eve thinks that she's going to die because Sofia calls out Eve on the fact that Eve was Oz's alibi for on the night that Alberto died. So Sofia still technically could kill Eve and would be justified in doing it because Eve was somewhat of an accomplice in the murder of her brother. She's got the gun pointed at Eve, and Eve is kind of a G. She just stands or she sits and stares right at Sofia and is just like, yeah, like, kill me if you have to. Just leave my girls alone when you're done here. And basically, me and my girls, we take care of each other. We got each other's back. Like, that's what we do. And to Sofia's credit, she looks her dead in the eye and she respects it and she walks out and doesn't kill her. And because of that, as she walks out, Eve drops one last valuable piece of knowledge and says, go to Crown Point. They're going to be in Crown Point right near the zoo. You deserve your shot. So, pretty big fucking moment. And Eve says, like, obviously you didn't get the information from me. So yeah, I'm going to pause there. We got some messages in the chat. Wardrobe is saying, he's telling everyone, you don't have to like Batman or DC or the comic books. Just watch. I totally agree with that. Neither of us, Damon, have read the comics, right? Like we're not huge into the comic lore. We've watched the Batman. We've watched the movies and stuff, but this is just awesome stuff. This feels more like Sopranos with a little bit less of the humor, but you know what I mean? And then Wardrobe also says this scene is incredible. Both characters are saying things and making decisions based on their past conversations and motivations. Yeah. So what were your thoughts on that? What were your thoughts on just this scene in general, just that dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, spot on. They both spend the entire scene psychoanalyzing each other, and it feels like tit for tat for a second, where Sophia's like, I used to have to lie to men like that, but now I have enough power where that's not really a thing anymore. We got even more insight from there because they end up being on good terms because that Sophia likes the fact that Eve is solid. She likes that her employees trust her, which is the exact opposite of how people see Oz. So I think Sophia's drawing some battle lines now, almost philosophically too, where like anything that reminds her of Oz repulses her, but she realizes how different Eve is from him in a certain kind of way. I didn't think that it was going to take Sophia being chirped about the hangman thing to get to the root of Oz just being a climber who would throw anybody down to get ahead.
Yeah.
But you knew that Oz and Eve were separating. Every episode, they were further and further apart in terms of how fully Eve was in on this. At last episode, she pretty much sells her stock, honestly. Like, I think if Sophia would have gone after Eve 2 episodes ago, it would have been justified. But at this point, Eve knows that, like, Oz, even if he is gaining power, the ways he is seizing the power are not either sustainable or proving that he's any kind of merit of someone that you want to keep around.
Yeah. And as I was scrolling through, this was really interesting, this little exchange, right? When they're kind of like verbal sparring, and I feel like if Eve said the wrong thing, then Sophia might have pulled the trigger. But so like Eve goes, so when you're done here, Wardrobe, appreciate the super chat. Really appreciate that. So Eve goes, when you're done here, just leave my girls alone, okay? And Sophia goes, that's why you asked me to come up here, right? Like basically to save them. And then Eve counters with, but that's not who you are, right? Like you're not the hangman anymore. It's like this like she like almost like checkmates Sophia, where it's like, all right, if you're not the hangman, then you're not gonna kill me, right? You're not gonna kill me if you're not the hangman, and you're at least, even if you kill me for revenge, you're at least not gonna go after my girls. So she kind of like, I would say she kind of outduels Sophia in this instance. Not saying like Sophia went in there trying to kill her, but it's this moment where it shows like Eve fucking can hold her own, you know?
Yeah, I think she's holding her own, and I think Sophia is realizing like what kind of boss she wants to be too. Like, does she just want to kill people indiscriminately because they're tied to Oz, or does she want to actually have some standards in which she rolls with?
Yeah. Also, the wardrobe people for this show have done such a good job with Sophia's fucking like the outfits that she's rocking in the drip. Like, just she looks like a new age, like a combo of new money, old money, like Italian mob, like fucking queen. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Yeah, it adds to her personality too in each scene.
Yeah. All right. Now we jump to I titled this pre-gaming the meetup, which I thought was apt. It's basically just Oz like getting all of his guys ready, and he's got this giant cooler, which turns out he's just got a bunch of like fucking natty lights in there, just some sort of beer in the fucking cooler. And he's getting ready to go to this meetup. He's called a bunch of the gangs over. He's also called the triads over. At this point, Vic pulls up, and obviously Vic is kind of shook after what he's just had to do. Real quick, Mel goes, she says, Sofia's developing a code, but let's see how that goes with Oz's mom. Yeah, we're gonna see like where Sofia really draws the line in terms of just like violence in the next few episodes. But so Vic pulls up to Oz's like little office, and right away, like he just tells Oz, look, or he doesn't even say anything, right? Like Oz just kind of like knows Vic so well. He sees the expression on Vic's face, and he immediately just goes like, "Are you good?" And when Vic kind of just like gives a half nod, Oz immediately knows like something with that guy. It's crazy how well Oz like understands Vic and just like really knows him. And Vic goes, "Yeah." And Oz goes, "Did you get away clean?" And Vic goes, "Yeah, I think so." And Oz at this moment just like, it's almost like some father-son shit. He coaches him through how to handle the murder so well. It's almost like a fucking AAU basketball coach when I was younger, like coaching me through a mistake. He's just like, look, keep your eyes up here. You did the right thing. You protected those that you cared about. He gives him a hug, and then he tells him it gets easier, which is insane. But Oz like, you know, he plays the role of mentor, and he gets Vic through it. And he tells him, look, just get something to eat, rest up. And I think he sends Vic back to Crown Point, to the apartment to just go make sure that his mom's okay. And then he heads over to the meetup. Do you want to say anything about just like that little coaching sesh before I go into the meetup, or?
Yeah, I can drop a little bit. I think this really connects to the idea where Oz sees so much of himself in Vic, or maybe he just wants to see some of himself in Vic because he's already changed him so much and has influenced his life to a huge degree. This is like the only situation Oz could be a mentor in because he doesn't really know much about anything else. But, you
Yeah.
know, doing crime and getting away with it, like that's kind of in his bag for it. But very important scene between the two. I'm not sure it was quite as impactful as some of the other emotional stuff from this episode, but it felt like it was in the right place.
Yeah. He's like, you caught your first body, kid. It'll get a lot easier. Your next one's going to be way easier. All right. So now we get to the meetup. This is crazy because I thought at this meetup, Oz was pulling up with a bunch of drugs in like cash to kind of like bribe the gangs, but no, he actually just pulls up with like a 30 rack of beers, right? Fritz brings me back to the college days where you're like, yeah, just bring a 30 rack over to the pregame. But he's got all of these gangs pulled up. I think I wrote down the names somewhere. Like the names that were dropped were the obviously we got the triads, we got Zhao and Link, who we had seen in the previous episodes. We got the Sullivans, who apparently are like the oldest like street gang in the area. We got a gang called Massive. We got Odessa. We got the Low Boys. So I think so they're all the prominent gangs in the area. Now individually, none of them can stand up to what Sofia and Sal are packing. But if they all combine forces, then they got something going. So Oz pulls up with a fucking cooler full of beer, and he starts just handing out beers to everyone, like handing out cheap beers to everyone. Everyone's like, "What the fuck is going on?" And he gives this speech basically saying several things. First, he says, "Yeah, look, I did everything that everyone's accusing me of. I did." It's kind of similar to the speech that Sofia gave in last episode. He says, "Yes, I killed Alberto. I did what I had to do. I betrayed Sofia. Whatever. Fuck it." But he calls this what he calls this meeting is the Gold Summit. He says, "Look, this meeting is going to make history. They're going to be talking about this night for a long, long time. I know you guys all hate each other, but we need to all work together." And his whole the gist of his speech is basically like, they don't give a fuck about us. It's us versus them, right? That's been the theme of what Oz says this entire time throughout the entire season is it's us versus them. They don't know our names. Like, they can get rid of us at a moment's notice. And he makes a great point, because if you're running the Sullivans, right, like this dude is running the Sullivans, and he's mad at Oz, right? Because at first, because he's like, look, I got 3 of my guys strung up because of you, and Oz is like, why the fuck are you blaming me for that? Which is a great point, right? Like Oz is like, why are you blaming me for your guys getting killed? Who killed your guys? It was Sofia. She killed them because she could, and there's nothing you could do about it. So like, what are you gonna do, man? Like, are you really gonna be mad at me? And like, he shuts up the leader of the Sullivans because he's like, man, that's a good fucking point. How am I supposed to get mad at Oz instead of the actual people who killed my fucking guys? So he's just kind of going around like giving this speech. He also tells, I think his name is Donny Boy, right? The leader of the Sullivans is called Donny Boy. I'm guessing he's Irish, right? And Oz is just a hint that he's Irish, but Oz tells him like, look, you and your ancestors, your ancestors built that bridge. They don't name it after your ancestors. They name it after some rich politicians. Like nobody here respects any of you guys here. We're going to change that. We're going to start getting credit for the work that we do. They run shit. We eat shit, but no more. Fuck that shit. So he's just giving this speech. Everyone's starting to like look around and be like, yeah, he makes a good fucking point. Like they have all the power. There's nothing we can do. Now there is one family that's still kind of against this. The Triads are still, Zhao is still against all of this, right? Because Zhao is kind of just like, look, Oz has betrayed everyone. This man's a fucking fool. He actually calls him the Penguin. We can't work with this guy. And Zhao had originally pledged his allegiance to Sofia, but he has a tricky relationship with the Maronis, right? Or actually, no, with the Falcone family, because Carmine was the one who forced the Triads to just stay in Chinatown. So Zhao's like, no, we can't trust Oz. And Oz is like, dude, fuck that shit. Like, who cares, right? I'm a hustler. I did what I had to do. I'm a hustler, but I do have some sort of code. He doesn't really explain what his code is, but he's like, look, I got a code, and let's just get rich and fuck the powers that be, right? It's just a rebellion. It doesn't really matter. We'll worry about the rest when we get there. For the time being, we need to lift up and make our own. So he starts handing beers to everyone, and they start coming around, and they all start popping open the cans of beer, and Zhao is the last one to do it. But once he's in, and now to their whole goal is to take back Gotham, and Oz now has, I guess, enough of an army if all of these gangs are united where it can be a much more fair fight than what it was. Mel drops in the chat, I thought he was going to poison them all. I thought the same thing, Damon, when he was sipping and it was zooming on the sip. I'm like, did he fucking poison these beers? Like, what's... But then I was like, what is going on? Wardrobe says Low Boys represented by 2 women. Love it. Yeah, I think that was pretty fucking cool. I think that was pretty cool. It was cool to see just how different all of the gangs were. So it looks like we got a sort of temporary union right now. What did you think about that?
Yeah, he has a concept of a code, you might say.
Yeah.
But I really liked the way the Low Boys and all the other groups were brought back in, because in some of the Batman cartoons and stuff from back in the day, and from, I think, Gotham too, the show, these were the gangs that were used then. So there's like this whole canon version of these gangs in Gotham where the Penguin / Oz plugs back into it from time to time. There are 2 reasons why I think that this worked out so well for Oz. One, because all of the little factions want their own slice of power. They want a chance at power. And 2, like you mentioned, Chen, there's like nothing that's going to unite somebody than saying, if we don't stand up to these guys now, then they can just roll you whenever they want.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best way to communicate that message is pulling up in a classic Chevy truck in a giant cooler full of Gotham lights, for all the boys and everyone all around, just to, crack one in terms of unison to just let them know you're on the same page. I thought it was kind of hilarious that whenever you cracked the beer, that was like symbolizing they were in on Oz's plan. Some Sopranos meets Game of Thrones vibe going on here. I wasn't sure that he was going to take the bargain basement hustler line standing up from the Triad. That was kind of a harsh one, but Oz doesn't really take anything personal as long as you can realign with him in some way. So it was cool to see that.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me respond to this chat real quick from Wardrobe. He asked, is the show Gotham any good, or did it disappoint after this? I haven't seen the show, Damon. Have you seen Gotham?
Yeah, I thought I didn't have high expectations for it. I mean, it's definitely got like a CW vibe to it, if that makes sense. But I think it's worth a watch. You see some cool representations of characters in ways that you wouldn't normally expect. Like the dude from Shameless plays the Joker at one point, and it is just was way more refreshing than seeing Jared Leto's version of the Joker at the time to me. So I liked it as like a little break because at the time some of the Batman adaptations were a little lacking, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Also, Wardrobe says pulling up with the Chevy with beers felt like we were watching Friday Night Lights. Absolutely. Also, it's funny because if they had done like a high end dinner, right? Like if they went to a really nice steakhouse and then they're all toasting with expensive wines, that wouldn't really fit the whole theme that Oz is trying to push, right? Like, oh, we're the little guys, going against the establishment, going against the money and the power, right? This is more fitting. You got some cheap fucking dollar beers. That 30 rack probably costs like $22, and they're just in this little fucking, what is it? Like a cargo yard essentially. And that's where they're toasting this union. That's where the Gold Summit is taking place. So this really is just like the underground of the underground. All right, so then we jump to the last scene, and it's just Vic kind of staying with Francis, and he's still just kind of mulling over what he just did, and he looks at his shoes, and there's still some blood on his shoes, and he tries to wipe off some of the blood, and then out of nowhere, the power starts coming back up. It turns out that our man Billy Walsh, aka Councilman Hady, the threats from Oz worked, and he has managed to get electricity to get sent back to Crown Point, and he goes to kind of celebrate with Francis. Francis is super excited. She's got her music playing again. She starts dancing with Vic, but some noises happen in the background. Vic is a little bit concerned at first, but then he's just having too good of a time. But we know what that is. It is Sofia Gigante. She's got a crowbar, and she is just watching them. And it's hard to tell what is in her expression, right? Like, is it like a combination? Like, there's obviously hatred, but she's looking at Vic and Francis, and they're not necessarily responsible for all of this, right? Like, Oz is really her true enemy. So she's seeing like this dynamic of like, not innocence from Francis's point of view, because Francis obviously has been the battery behind Oz's back, but from Vic's point of view, there's still some innocence left there. So it's this weird like situation where Sofia almost looks like she's a little bit sad that they get to experience this. Like, I don't know. What'd you think about all that?
Yeah, I think that as just a character, Sophia's face can mask true feeling at times, but recently with the code that she's trying to develop, it looks like she's trying to decide really how to go about this because she has to make a move here. But what is it? I mean, is it killing either of these two? I don't think so. I think she's going to take Oz's mom somehow and use her as collateral, some kind of bargaining tool. I think there's going to be some sort of a hostage situation or something like that. I don't know if overt revenge against an old woman who is clearly like going through it is going to be where she's going to go, especially based on the combo she just had with Eve. And I think it was a really cool reveal suspense wise because Vic and Oz's mom are basically both processing separate traumas and going through some serious stuff, but then they're making light of it. They have this little bonding moment. And then that's your glance that you get is her with a crowbar with honestly like a very striking facial feature, like at the very start of it too. I mean, Kristen Milioti has been incredible as Sophia all season long. And she's truly like, we all knew that Colin Farrell was going to be the guy as the Penguin and it was going to be awesome. But I think what's propelled this show to a way different standard is having Sophia come in and Kristen playing her so well. Like, I think that it's irreplaceable.
Yeah, I also asked in the chat if they think Sophia is going to take just Francis or Francis and Vic. Like, what do you think?
I mean, that's a good question too. I don't think she rode solo,
No,
right?
no
I
way,
think
no
she
way.
I think she has people with her downstairs, so I think she gets Vic and Francis, to be honest with you, because I don't know what use she would have to not, to like leave Vic or kill Vic or something. I think she would probably take both.
Yeah, it's also interesting too because when Vic is dancing with Francis, there's like this dynamic where like Francis is almost pretending like Vic is her son, and sometimes she's like losing her mind and thinking that, but then there's other moments where she's like, all right, I know he's not my son, but I'm gonna act like he's one of my boys. And Vic seems all too happy to play into that role because he doesn't have any more family. He's lost his parents as well. So it's I think there's one moment like she's like proud of Oswald, but she also seems to be like even like a little bit proud of Vic. So it's just interesting. But all right, I guess we got some. I guess that pretty much does it for this episode. We'll be back for episode 7. We got what, 2 more episodes left in this season? We got 7 and 8. Is this gonna be an 8-episode season?
Yeah.
8-episode season. Okay, let's see. Wardrobe says she'll do something with the mom. Oz killed her brother. All are fair game, unfortunately. Yeah, that's true. Once one family member is killed, then everything is on the fucking table. Damon, you got any thoughts on this episode? Any predictions for what happens next episode? Just thoughts in general.
I think we've heard, I think it was a rumor, but I heard that Sophia is going to make an appearance in the next Batman movie. Not sure if that's just internet gossip or if that's legitimate. If that's true, I would say the next couple episodes are going to be a big showdown between Oz and the Sophia / Maroni syndicate, trying to get either Vic or the mom back, like whoever he can rescue or whatever he can do. I would find it the odds pretty slim that Sophia would kill both Vic and her right away.
Yeah.
So I think that's just going to be the conflict we get resolved towards the end of the season. But we are overdue for that Penguin origin episode and the Oz origin episode.
True. You think they're gonna wait? Would it make more sense to do the Oz origin episode for the penultimate episode or the season finale?
I think it would happen. I think if it was going to happen in the finale, next episode is going to be a huge action episode.
Yeah. Yeah. If she pops up in the Batman 2, that's gonna be fucking crazy. Yeah. Like her and Robert Pattinson. Oh my god. Fuck. We need that. We need them to give that to us next year, but unfortunately, it's delayed to 2026 or something, or is it?
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. So we'll be back next Sunday night to cover episode 7, and then when this season ends, we're gonna be doing Doom Prophecy, right? Because Doom Prophecy basically starts right after. So
yeah, right after.
Yeah. So November, we got you guys covered. We'll be doing Doom Prophecy, covering those as soon as they drop, and then we're in the middle of True Detective season 2. We haven't had time to finish it for the time being because we're obviously going to focus more on the shows that are actually airing right now. But when Doom Prophecy ends, we'll go back to finishing off the rest of season 2 for True Detective. But appreciate everyone for watching, joining in the chat. It's a great conversation. We will catch y'all later.
Later.